Let's get back into the Victorian budget. Business, quick to point out yesterday, this is death by 1,000 taxes, could lead to an exodus of jobs and investment from Victoria, they say. Businesses that bore the brunt of the Andrews government record lockdowns are now being asked to foot the bill and mop up after the Premier. Joining me now to discuss this, Australian Industry Group Victorian Head, Tim Piper. Tim, let's start with payroll tax. Just short of $4 billion in extra taxes headed your way. Payroll's, of course, over $10 million hit with this. The Premier likes to say this is just the top end of town, but it's bigger than that, isn't it?
Well, this is way bigger than that. I think the government is actually acting surprised that this budget has had the reaction that it's had. I mean, what we've actually got is a budget that has been quite divisive. We've had a budget that is creating landlord against tenant, private schools against public schools, a big business against small business, and the big businesses are being really hit very hard. We're talking about a 41% increase in the levies on payroll tax. So they're not really payroll tax, they're levies that have increased over 2 years. 42% on the premiums on Worksafe, the land taxes that have been imposed. This is going to have far-reaching effects, and it's going to be affecting not just the big businesses, it'll be affecting everybody, because the small businesses have to be impacted by the larger ones because they need the business from them.
You're right to remind me about the workplace relations levy, the Worksafe levy, I think it's called, that came in. It was announced just before the budget came down. I think that was almost a near doubling of what you already pay. There was the $3 billion mental health levy. That's also hit business. Tell me, why would you operate a big business in Victoria? When you look at these extra charges coming your way, why wouldn't you pack up ship and go interstate?
Well, 16 of the top 25 companies in Australia are actually operating from Victoria at the moment, but you must question what they're going to do in terms of their next investment. They're not going to be leaving Victoria, we know that. This is not going to be anybody just leaving a sinking ship, but the next investment is the important one. Where are they going to invest now when they see a government that is not supporting business like others do? New South Wales, Queensland must be looking at themselves and saying, how can we make sure the next investments are going to be elsewhere? That's our concern. We hope it doesn't happen out of Victoria, of course, but the concern is that if you haven't got a government that's supporting you as a business that in fact is doing the opposite, then you're going to find yourself having to find new investments that won't be there. We want the investments staying in Victoria, but it's going to be less likely when you've got the level of taxes that are now being imposed.
I tell you, if you're the new Treasurer out in New South Wales and you've got a delay on your budget, it doesn't come down for a couple of months yet, obviously just after the election they've been given some grace, you'd go out there and do a payroll tax holiday for anyone willing to come to Sydney. Talk to me about land taxes. What's been the impact of the announcements yesterday?
Well, the reaction to the land tax across the board has been really significant. 380,000 people are going to be paying land tax that weren't paying it before. Let me tell you, that they're going to be the ones that are feeling it, even if the government thinks it's only $1,500 or thereabouts. But it worries me because the government says that it's going to be announcing a new housing policy or a new housing program in September this year. I'm concerned that they're actually going to be looking at a cap on rents. Because there is a real push from the left to make sure that those rents are capped, that they're not going to go up any further than they are right now. And if they're putting something out in September, I think we can be looking at something along those lines because the rents are going up about as much as the land tax is going to be going up.
I spoke to a couple of people in the property industry who manage very large rent rolls. They've already had owners say, sell it. Now, if what you're predicting happens as well, that rents are capped, even if you want to hang on to it, you've got this extra tax to pay. You can't keep the rent coming into the home, your own home, to keep abreast of your own mortgage and your investment property. You're likely to sell, and that'll put more pressure on renters, not less pressure.
Peter, there's active discouragements to invest at the moment, whether it be in big business, looking at what the payroll tax is now and what it's going to be for the next 10 years, whether it's just mum and dads who are deciding whether they want to be investing in a new apartment, whether they want to be investing in new property. More often than not, those properties are going for rent, and people actually want to get themselves a little bit of a foothold. But if they're being discouraged from doing that, that will have reverberations across the board. and we're not going to be able to stop these rents from increasing. They will increase because it just stands to reason that if you've had a new tax imposed on you, if you've got a new situation that you haven't had before, you're going to pass it on. And I can't see how the government thinks otherwise.
Just quickly, 200 billion odd on this suburban rail. A lot of people in infrastructure say the government should have bit the bullet and scrapped this project, particularly when something that's been, talked about for 3 decades plus, a rail line from the airport, is in doubt.
Well, I think there are a number of infrastructure projects that are in doubt at the moment, whether it's the suburban rail loop, which is, anything from $35 to $200 billion. Take your pick as to what that might be. The airport rail that is significant, and that's been pulled at the moment, despite the fact that there's already been some work being done on it. The Geelong rail that has been spoken about for quite some time, or indeed one that's coming up in the next couple of years, the Commonwealth Games. All of these will need significant infrastructure funding. We don't know where that funding's coming from, and it's going to cost the Victorian taxpayer considerably. We need to make sure that our debt doesn't go to an extreme even further than it's gone at the moment. That's the real concern that we have. So these infrastructure developments really have to be questioned.